The veteran's eyes darkened as he shifted in his seat, his voice growing more solemn. There's one story that defines what it means to be human. It's a story not of strength, but of resilience. A story of never giving up, no matter the odds. He took a breath before continuing, his mind drifting back to a mission that had tested him and his squad to the limits of their endurance. We were on a planet far from the heart of the war, deep in enemy territory. We were tasked with holding a position, a critical outpost that the aliens wanted to control. The odds were stacked against us from the start. Superior numbers, advanced weaponry, and the terrain itself worked against us. But we had orders. And we had each other. The alien soldiers listened intently, their interest piqued by the mention of human resilience. To them, survival in such situations was about firepower and strategy, not determination. But the veteran had more to say. We knew we were going to be overwhelmed. The enemy forces were on their way, and we were outnumbered, outgunned, and in no position to win. But we didn't have a choice. We weren't there to win. We were there to hold the line for as long as possible. And that's exactly what we did. We dug in, fortified our position, and made use of every scrap of equipment we had. The first wave hit us within hours of our arrival. We fought back, but we were forced to retreat deeper into the base. And then the real battle began. The veteran's expression grew grim. We were trapped. The enemy had us surrounded, and there was no way out. No reinforcements coming, no escape. Just us, stuck in a base with dwindling supplies, trying to hold on. The enemy had us cornered, but we weren't going to surrender. We didn't care if we were outnumbered. We didn't care if we were injured. We were going to fight until there was nothing left. He paused, the memory of the battle vivid in his mind. The days dragged on. We had no food, no water, and very little ammunition. The enemy would attack at all hours, trying to wear us down. But we fought back every time, even when it seemed hopeless. We used everything we had, scavenged weapons, improvised traps, even the environment itself. We couldn't match their firepower, but we could match their will. And that's what kept us going. The alien soldiers were silent, some of them shifting uncomfortably. They had seen many battles, but none like this. To fight without hope of victory, to fight not for glory but for survival, it was a concept that was foreign to them. Their wars were about conquest, about asserting dominance. They didn't fight when victory seemed impossible. The veteran's voice hardened. One by one, we lost our comrades. They fell to enemy fire, to exhaustion, to starvation. But they didn't give up.
Not one of them.
We didn't have the luxury of surrendering, and we didn't have the luxury of dying on our knees. We fought, even when we knew we wouldn't make it out alive. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he delivered the final blow to the alien soldier's perception of humans. And then, when it seemed like there was no hope left, when we had no ammunition and no way to fight back, we made one last push. We took the fight to them, even when we had nothing left to give. And against all odds, we broke through their lines. The veteran paused, letting the weight of his words settle in the room. The alien soldiers were stunned. They had heard stories of military might, of tactics that turned the tide of battles, but this was something they had never experienced. A force that didn't stop, didn't surrender, even when all was lost. We didn't win that battle, the veteran said quietly, but we survived. And that was all that mattered. The alien soldiers remained silent, the impact of his words sinking in. The veteran had just shown them something they could never have understood before. The human spirit. Not the physical strength, not the technology, but the unyielding will to keep going, to keep fighting, even when everything pointed to certain death. The veteran's voice softened. That's what makes us dangerous. It's not that we're stronger or faster. It's that we don't quit. And that's why, when you're up against a human, you can never underestimate them. The veteran leaned back, his eyes scanning the room full of alien soldiers, now silent, their previous doubts about humanity beginning to shift. He took a deep breath before delivering his final message, one that would forever alter how they viewed humans. "You've heard the stories," the veteran said, his voice calm but filled with an undeniable weight. You've heard about survival on Earth, about how we face impossible odds and never back down. But what you need to understand is that the most dangerous thing about humanity is not our technology, not our strength, and not our tactics. It's our ability to endure. He paused, letting his words linger in the air. Humans don't have the luxury of giving up. Our species has fought for every inch of ground we stand on. From the first days of our existence, we've had to survive against forces far greater than ourselves, be it nature, other species, or even our own kind. And time again, we've come out on top. Not because we're the strongest, but because we refuse to quit. The veteran's gaze swept over the room again, making sure each alien soldier was listening closely. We've been through more than you could imagine. We've fought wars that no one thought we could win. We've faced enemies that seemed unstoppable. And in every single one of those battles, our greatest weapon was not our size or our weapons. It was our will to survive, our refusal to be wiped out. And it's that will that makes us dangerous. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. They had seen the power of their own kind, the technology and the raw strength that could decimate entire fleets. But this was different. The veteran wasn't speaking about power in the way they understood it. He was speaking about something far more elusive, something that couldn't be quantified or measured in sheer force. Even when the odds are stacked against us, even when we are outnumbered, when we have nothing left to fight with, we keep going, the veteran continued. We fight for survival, for the future of our species, for our homes, for our families. That's the real reason humans are so dangerous. You can crush our bodies, you can break our machines, but you cannot break our spirit. We will keep fighting until we draw our last breath. He allowed the silence to build for a moment, letting the full force of his words settle. And that's something none of you can understand. You're all so used to having the upper hand, to being the stronger, more powerful species. But the moment you start underestimating us, that's when we'll win. It's when you start thinking that we're just weak, fragile creatures that will turn the tables on you. That's when we'll fight back, when you think we've already lost. The veteran's voice lowered, but it was firm. I've fought battles where victories seemed impossible. I've faced enemies that could have wiped us out in seconds, and yet, here we are. We didn't win by being the strongest. We won because we never stopped fighting. We found a way, no matter how impossible it seemed. And that's why humanity survives. It's why we've survived wars, catastrophes, and even the very nature of our own planet. The veteran sat before the alien soldiers, the room filled with tense silence as they waited for his words. The humans, to them, were fragile, insignificant creatures that were hardly worth acknowledgement in the grand scheme of intergalactic warfare. They believed that strength lay solely in physical prowess and overwhelming firepower, something the humans lacked. But the veteran, with his battle-worn face and scars that spoke of countless wars, was about to change their perception. He began with a story from Earth, a planet the alien soldiers had never truly understood. Earth was a place that no alien had ever conquered, a death world that posed a challenge to even its own inhabitants. The veteran's voice was calm, steady, but it held a certain weight, one born of experience in the most brutal environments. On Earth, we didn't just fight against other species. We fought against the world itself, the veteran said. Our planet is not a peaceful place. From the moment we wake, we're up against a hostile environment, unpredictable weather, dangerous animals, and landscapes that are hostile to life itself. The aliens exchanged glances. They had heard of Earth, of course. But to them, it was just a backwater world, a place where primitive humans struggled to survive. They had no real understanding of the harsh conditions the humans had to endure. The veteran continued, his voice growing stronger with every word. I remember a battle, deep in the jungles of South America. We were part of a recon mission, deep behind enemy lines. The landscape itself was trying to kill us, poisonous plants, venomous creatures, diseases we had no immunity against. The terrain was thick with mud, the air heavy with humidity. But we were stuck. We couldn't move forward without the risk of being trapped or ambushed. He paused for a moment, letting the weight of his words sink in. The alien soldiers, with their strong bodies and advanced technology, could hardly imagine what it was like to fight in such conditions. We didn't have the advantage of your strength or advanced technology. We had to rely on something far more valuable: our ability to adapt. We learned how to move silently, how to use the environment to our advantage. We used the jungle itself as both our shield and our weapon. The weather would turn against us, but we learned to survive it. If we were to make it out alive, we had no choice but to embrace the brutal reality of our world. The alien soldiers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They were used to relying on their strength and technology, but the idea of adapting to their environment in such a primitive, human way was foreign to them. We learned to adapt or die, the veteran continued. And we survived. Not because we were stronger, but because we were smarter. Because we didn't give up. We saw an enemy we couldn't overpower, so we outsmarted them. We used our environment, our knowledge, and our will to overcome. That's how we won the war for Earth. The aliens sat in stunned silence. They had expected the veterans' tales to be about battles fought with superior weapons and tactics. They had expected strength to be the deciding factor, as it always had been in their wars. But this was different. This was something they couldn't comprehend. The veteran had described a world so harsh, so unforgiving, that it seemed almost impossible to survive. And yet humans had found a way. Humans don't need to be the strongest, the veteran said, his voice quiet but filled with conviction. We just need to be smarter. We don't have the luxury of relying on brute strength. Our strength comes from our ability to adapt, to fight through the impossible, and to never give up. That's what makes us dangerous. The alien soldiers were no longer laughing at the thought of the humans being weak. They were listening. The veteran's tale had shaken their belief that strength alone could win a war. They began to realize that the humans' true strength lay in their resilience, their ingenuity, and their refusal to accept defeat, no matter the odds. The veteran leaned forward slightly, his expression hardening as he prepared to recount his next tale. The alien soldiers, still digesting the first story, sat in silence, their curiosity piqued. They had heard of the prowess of other species, of the legendary beasts that roamed distant worlds. But they had never expected a human to confront such horrors. The veteran's eyes narrowed as he began to speak again. "There's a planet I'll never forget," he said, his voice sharp. It was nothing like Earth. It was a world where the predators were so powerful they could tear through a tank like it was paper. It was a hostile, brutal place, and we were sent there on a mission to hunt one of those creatures down. The alien soldiers stiffened. They could not imagine facing such a beast, let alone hunting it. Their worlds were filled with hostile environments, yes, but they had technology to subdue even the most dangerous of beasts. Humans, in their view, were fragile, their bodies no match for the kind of creatures that roamed the universe. But the veteran's voice held a calm assurance, as though he had faced worse and survived. This creature, the veteran continued, was a behemoth. It had claws that could cut through steel, teeth like knives, and eyes that burned with the hunger of a predator who had been at the top of the food chain for millennia. We were told it was a hunting expedition, but that was a lie. Our mission was to eliminate it. The veteran paused, looking around at the alien soldiers. They could not fathom the situation. On their worlds, when they hunted, they used advanced technology, drones, traps, and overwhelming firepower. They couldn't imagine being in a position where their own bodies were the only weapon against such a beast. "We had no special weapons," the veteran continued. "We were humans, fighting a creature that was far beyond anything we'd ever faced before. But we had something it didn't: the will to survive. The moment we stepped into its territory, we were already outmatched, but we didn't back down. We tracked the creature across the landscape for days, learning its patterns, its weaknesses. We made use of everything around us, every piece of terrain, every plant, every scrap of metal. We turned the environment into our ally." The veteran's voice grew colder. "We didn't have the luxury of being the strongest. We didn't have claws or fangs. We had to use our minds. We studied this beast, learned how it moved, how it hunted. It was bigger than us, stronger than us, but it had one weakness: arrogance. It thought it was invincible, that no creature could challenge it. And that was its downfall. The alien soldiers began to shift, understanding beginning to take root in their minds. They had relied on superior strength for so long that the concept of using intellect and patience as weapons was alien to them. "We set a trap," the veteran said. "We used its own arrogance against it. We lured it into a narrow ravine where it couldn't move freely. It was a death sentence for most of our team, but we knew it was the only way to bring it down. We forced it into a position where it couldn't fight back with its full strength. And then we struck." He leaned back, his eyes distant as he recalled the final moments of the hunt. "It took everything we had, but we killed it. Not by overpowering it, but by outsmarting it. We didn't rely on strength. We relied on the one thing that separates us from every other creature in the galaxy: our brains."